Hi, I'm Jay Beecham. It's January 15th, 2013. My, how time flies. I'm going to teach you 5 things you can do to improve your speaking ability, whether you're a professional in radio, television, advertising, the voiceover, voice talent industry, on the speaker of your bureau, or well, whether you're just doing it for a civic group or speaking in church, so you can be a better speaker. 5 things I learned. Hopefully they'll help you. Why I mention how time flies is back in 1964, when I was 14 years old, I was working with my father in the garden of the people who owned the local radio station, the Winklemans. Now Mrs. Winkleman, we called Mrs. Wink, was the station manager. She came out and talked with us, and she thought my voice was good and wanted to hire me onto her radio station when I turned 16. However, I'd have to come to her station after school and take coaching from her and learn from the announcers and study for the FCC exam. Well, you needed a license in order to be a broadcaster. So I did that for 2 years. Now, before that, I'd been quite fascinated with Disney World's wildlife and adventure films, and I wanted to be one of those narrators. So I studied speaking and came across a guy named Demosthenes, a Greek guy who stuttered, just didn't speak well, and he wanted to be an orator. He wanted people to understand him, and so he did some exercises. He'd go down along the coast, along the beach, and he'd pick up some smooth pebbles and stick in the cheeks of his mouth and speak around them so that he could enunciate things better. Well, Mrs. Wink thought I ought to do that, but she suggested marbles instead of the pebbles, and I didn't think that was a very good idea, because supposing you swallowed one of those and it went down your lungs or some other place you didn't want it to go. So I gave up on that. Well, she had another exercise. You take 2 fingers, she said, and you stick them between your teeth, so, and you speak around them. Yeah. Don't cut your fingers off with your teeth. And it does really help your enunciation. Or you could look in the mirror and watch yourself speaking, and you could enunciate things better by getting that kind of feedback from the mirror. Now, Demosthenes also used to yell against the surf as it crashed against the rock, so he'd gain volume so that people could hear him. Well, Abraham Lincoln even did that. Well, he'd put somebody in the back of the room to give him a high sign if he wasn't speaking loud enough. Well, with microphones, we don't have to do that today. We can get closer to the microphone, or we can come farther away from the microphone, or we can even whisper. And it doesn't matter. We don't have to have that big booming voice that they used to have. But you know, the microphone causes another problem. It picks up everything, including our breathing sounds. Which leads to the next thing. Demosthenes used to run along through the surf, the water, or he'd run along through the sand to increase his lung volume, his breathing capacity, his endurance. John Gary, the singer, used to do that, and he'd even scuba dive. I even tried that. There was a red sand hill up above my house, rather steep. I'd run up it and down it to increase my lung capacity. Well, that's a good thing. But in doing that, it helps with your speech, because we have a thing called a diaphragm that's just below our rib cage. It separates our lungs and our heart cavity from the intestines, the stomach, the gallbladder, liver, pancreas, spleen, and the intestines from that. And, well, it separates them. And if you breathe down using the diaphragm, your stomach goes in and out, up and down, like a baby's does when you need air. Sometimes as an adult, we breathe with our upper body, raising our chest, and that causes a problem of a sound coming out, the sound of us breathing, which the microphone picks it up, whether we like it or not. So, how do we solve that? Well, we learned how to breathe through our nostrils and use our diaphragm. And we learned how to do some other things which will help that. Now, the first thing was, well, the exercise to improve our enunciation. The second thing was using our diaphragm, you know, that increased air that we have. Number 3, we can have some instant feedback. Now we can have a microphone to a tape recorder, a recording device of some kind, and have feedback. But instant feedback is really important. Headphones won't do this. Mrs. Wing suggested I either use one ear or both ears by cupping my hands around the ear and towards my mouth, my chin, so I'd get instant feedback on how I sounded. Or putting both hands out in front of me like this, or even just one hand, and thereby getting instant feedback on how I sounded. That was the third thing. Now the fourth thing was proper breathing by phrasing and pausing. Dramatic pauses to give emphasis where you need it, pausing where an apostrophe is, or the end of a sentence, or words you want to bring out, or pausing just so you can breathe by letting air in through your mouth or breathing through your nostrils. That was number 4. Now number 5, she suggested that I read, copy, read a newspaper, read magazine, read a book. Just pick it up and start reading. And that I read several letters, several words, half a sentence, a whole sentence, or more if I could, ahead of where I was speaking. And by so doing, then I could see what was coming up, know where to pause, know where to take a breath, know what kind of words I needed to pronounce. And I could then pick up news copy of any kind, or pick up anything, and just start reading and sound very eloquent, because I was just reading and it flowed because I was ahead of myself and knew what was coming up. Without practice. Radio people learn how to do this. You can too. Well, should we recap? Well, number 1, improve your enunciation, the little exercise. Increase your lung capacity and use your diaphragm for proper breathing. Get your instant feedback. Breathe properly with phrasing and pausing. And number 5, read just for practice, just for fun, out loud, by looking ahead of where you're speaking and seeing what's coming up. And keep practicing. The more you do the practicing, the better you'll be. And that'll help you be a better speaker. So all I can say is, well, this is Jay Beecham. Until next time, keep speaking.